Day 1 of our trip to Vietnam, we headed to Melbourne Airport and grabbed a coffee before checking in and hanging out in the Qantas lounge before our flight. We grabbed a bit of a feed and I got some work done. Our flight with Jetstar ended up being delayed by an hour, but that was whatever. On the plane, we didn't purchase any food or entertainment, but luckily we brought plenty of our own. After 8.5 hours, we got into Ho Chi Minh City at night and made the not so smart move of walking to our hotel that was only 10 minutes away, but somehow I got my shoes insanely muddy in the process. Anyways, it was so late and we were so tired, we ended up just ordering some room service pho, which did hit the spot right before we went to bed ahead of our flight to Hanoi in the morning. Day 2 in Vietnam, we got up early to check out of our hotel and grabbed a free shuttle back to Saigon Airport, where we got a quick brekkie inside the terminal before a 2-hour flight to Hanoi. We did get a snack on the plane, which was nice. After landing, we got our first Grab rideshare to our hotel, which was actually kind of a pain. The car we were meant to take changed at the last minute, so we almost lost our ride. Anyways, Vietnamese traffic is as crazy as you may have heard. It's pretty sketchy at times, but I guess it works. Our room at the hotel wasn't ready, but we did get a welcome snack and then dropped our bags and headed to their sister hotel to do a 100-minute spa sesh, which was a relaxing end to our travel and start to our holiday. After getting back to our hotel and into our room, we freshened up and headed out for a food tour to get us acquainted with Hanoi. The tour was awesome and I'll definitely do a full video on it eventually. After the tour, we went for a walk, checked out this famous Love Note cafe, and grabbed a few supplies before calling it a day. Vietnam Day 3, we checked out our hotel's included breakfast, which was great. They had pho, bun, and a few Western options too. After that, we went to the Ho Chi Minh Memorial Complex, and there were so many people there because it was a long weekend, which wasn't ideal. After waiting for 20 minutes, we got past security, but then I immediately got kicked out for having uncovered shoulders, even though we tried covering them up with our hats, but they were not buying it. Anyways, I got a coffee nearby while my girlfriend checked out the memorial. She then joined me and we grabbed a couple more drinks. We then went to a branch of this famous bun cha chain for lunch, which was great and cheap. After that, we walked to the Lottie Center Hanoi and went up to the observation deck for about an hour. Then we headed to a nearby dessert cafe for a break from the 39-degree heat and humidity. Afterwards, we spent a bit of time in the shopping mall next door to continue escaping the weather. We then freshened up at the hotel and visited the infamous train street and grabbed some drinks until a train came by about 20 minutes later. Really fun. We then headed to a famous 100-year-old Michelin star pho place, and it was a little hectic but a good experience, and the pho was great and cheap. Well worth it. Fourth day in Vietnam, we start off again with Hotel Brekkie. A few different options than the day before, which was nice. Then we dropped off a load of laundry and headed to Trang Quoc Pagoda and checked out the complex, which is pretty cool. But this was another crazy hot day outside. After grabbing a quick drink at this nice little cafe, we headed to the nearby lake and spent an hour paddling on these swan boats, which was fun but so easy to work up a massive sweat. We then grabbed some dry pho noodles for lunch at this place next to the Temple of Literature. Then we checked out the temple afterwards and spent a good amount of time there. We then headed to Hoa Lo Prison, which was a cool little experience, but really crowded with people given how small it is. After that, we walked to St. Joseph's Cathedral and went inside for just a little bit. Then we grabbed dinner at a nice restaurant that's very tourist friendly, but still had great food. After dinner, we did a 2-hour spa sesh we booked earlier in the day, then headed back to pick up our laundry before returning to the hotel and having a nightcap on its rooftop bar, which is pretty awesome. Rooftops are a great place to see the hectic Vietnamese street life from a different perspective. Day 5 in Vietnam, and today we're off to Ha Long Bay. After our last Hotel Brekkie, we checked out and got picked up in this nice van that they call limousines in Vietnam. After about 2 hours, we did a touristy stop at this pearl farm or store or whatever, and that was cool, I guess. We then checked in for our cruise and waited to get picked up on a smaller boat to get to our actual cruise ship. Once on board, we had a buffet-style lunch, which was decent. Then we got into our rooms and settled in before heading out for an hour of kayaking around a little part of the bay. The water was nice and calm, but a little dirty in parts, and this was another hot day, so floating in the sun wasn't ideal. We then hung out a bit on the boat's top deck spa and got a drink before another freshen up and a fun little rice paper roll making session. Then a little more chilling out before our 5-dish set menu dinner, which was decent. We then finished the evening off with a bit of squid fishing off the back of the boat, with no luck though. Before heading to bed, we also caught some iconic Ha Long Bay water garbage float right by our window, which was nice. It also stormed like crazy during the night, so that was a bit nuts. Vietnam Day 6, waking up on our Ha Long Bay cruise ship, we grabbed the onboard buffet brekkie, which was okay. We then had our excursion to Cat Ba Island. We took a smaller boat, then a bus to a cave, where we did a short walk through and saw some bats. After a bus and boat back to the cruise ship, it was time to check out and grab our last buffet brunch, then one last small boat ride back to the cruise terminal, where we then took a limousine van a couple of hours back to Hanoi. We checked into our next hotel, the Hanoi Pearl, then went back to walk around Hoi An Lake and check out the temple on the lake, which has cool stuff including 2 preserved giant turtles on display. We then walked around Hanoi's French Quarter and saw the Opera House and visited a cafe. After that, we grabbed some ice cream from a place that seemed really popular and was full of families and kids. We decided to grab a light and early dinner at a nearby Macca's just to see what they have locally. I got some fried chicken with some cheese and barbecue sauce on it, which was just okay. After Macca's, we just walked around for a little bit before heading to a little supermarket and getting a snack to eat back at the hotel. Day 7 in Vietnam, and today we're off to the Ninh Binh area, but first, Hotel Brekkie at the Hanoi Pearl, which was pretty nice. We then checked out Dong Xuan Market, which has all the typical flea market stuff you find in Southeast Asia. After that, we went to Banh Mi 25 and grabbed some sandwiches. This place is pretty popular, but I gotta say, it's just alright. After checking out of our hotel, we spent some time at this cool Studio Ghibli looking cafe with like 5 levels and a balcony view on each one. Nice place. Then we had one last hot bowl of pho in Hanoi, nice and cheap, before getting a limousine van a couple of hours to our homestay in Trang An, which is a really cool place in a nice quiet area. Once we checked in, we thought we could take a grab to Bic Dong Pagoda, but unfortunately most of it closes at 5 PM, so we just missed it. We had no other plans for the day, so we just went back to nearby Tam Kok to this place called Chukki's, which definitely was more of a Western touristy venue, but I gotta say had pretty good food and drinks at decent prices. We stayed there for a few hours before calling it a night. Eighth day in Vietnam, and today we're going on a tour around Ninh Binh. We scuffed down our homestay's included breakfast meal, which was awesome, then got picked up by a van and dropped off at Hoa Lu Ancient Capital, where we met our tour guide. After walking around and touring different temples and shrines, we got in a different van and headed to Mua Caves, where we did a 500-step hike to the top of a mountain with cool views and a sketchy peak. There were a lot of people and it was pretty slippery after some rain, so we didn't feel like climbing along the famous dragon statue there, but the views were still cool and it was a fun activity. We explored the other caves before heading to a random homestay for our buffet lunch, which was not bad actually. Drinks weren't included though. We then went on to the famous Trang An boat tour, which was about 90 minutes long. You get to ride through caves and visit one of the temples along the river, which was cool. Our last stop was Bai Dinh Pagoda, which is basically the size of a theme park with a bunch of temples, and there's these cool electric carts that take you back and forth too. At the end of our long tour day, we just went to a little restaurant near our homestay, which was nice and simple. Ninth day in Vietnam, and waking up again in Trang An. After our homestay brekkie, where they gave us some free yummy banana fritters, we borrowed a couple of bikes and had our first go at riding on the streets here in Vietnam. We rode about 40 minutes back to Bic Dong Pagoda, which was definitely open this time around, and after a drink by the lake, we checked out the cool little set of shrines and caves. After riding back, we then checked out of our homestay and took a 2-hour car ride all the way back to Hanoi Airport, where we grabbed some pho and a coffee before our flight to Da Nang. Once we were checked into our hotel, we grabbed some authentic com tam or broken rice for dinner, which was awesome, and then slowly made our way along the river and across the famous Dragon Bridge to Son Tra Night Market. At the night market, I got another fresh banana fritter, we had a couple more fruity drinks, and some avocado ice cream, which is a local specialty. Because it was the weekend, we walked around the market until it was time for the little show on the Dragon Bridge. The show is basically the dragon head breathing fire and spraying water for about 15 minutes, which is honestly a little underwhelming, and if you're under it directly, you'll get drenched. But it's still pretty cool, I guess. Day 10 in Vietnam, and this was an interesting one. After Hotel Brekkie in Da Nang, which was just alright, we went to an ear doctor because I got the tip of a cheap hotel cotton bud stuck in my ear while getting ready in the morning. This was my bad obviously, but at least this was a good reason to get my first professional ear cleaning and see what's inside. After all that, we got a coffee, then headed to the Marble Mountains, which is an absolutely massive group of mountains and hills with caves, shrines, and temples all around the place. You can spend the whole day here because there's so much to explore. You have to scramble and squeeze through tight places and parts, so at times it feels a little sketchy, but definitely worth a visit. For a late lunch, we went to famous Vietnamese pizza chain Pizza 4Ps and had a pretty great meal. We had a half and half pizza with salmon and beef, some crab pasta, sushi, and a couple of desserts. To end our day though, we can't be sure, but we think this meal gave us food poisoning. Lunch was the last thing we did because when we got back to our hotel at 3 PM, I had a bit of an upset tummy, but my girlfriend was bedridden for the rest of the day, and all we could stomach was some drinks from hotel room service. It's our 11th day in Vietnam, and my girlfriend is still recovering from food poisoning, so it's just me at brekkie. We then checked out and took a quick 30-minute car ride to Hoi An, where we're staying for a few days. At the hotel, our room wasn't ready, but we were able to just chill by the pool for a few hours, where I ordered a cheeseburger for lunch, which was pretty decent. Once we checked in and freshened up, we took a complimentary hotel shuttle into Hoi An ancient town, which has all the touristy goodness. A popular thing to do here is get stuff tailor-made, so my girlfriend placed an order for a handbag, which seemed like an interesting process. We then continued to walk around the river and get a vibe for the place. I got a Nutella banana pancake from a street vendor, and then to end our evening, I wanted to have my first meal at Vietnamese KFC. I specifically wanted to try this other type of chicken that they had, which had no KFC flavor on it at all, but was still pretty good, as well as their zinger spaghetti, which is just a sweet tomato sauce and shredded cheese on some pasta that comes with a zinger fillet. I always love getting local fast food items when I can. Day 12 in Vietnam, starting off with Hotel Brekkie in Hoi An, which was full of great options. Our first stop today was Tan Ha Terracotta Village, which has a lot of small clay potteries and stores, but we spent most of our time at the Terracotta Park, which has a few museums, exhibits, and a little workshop where you can have a quick go at making a cup or a bowl, which is cool. You can also get some refreshments there, so we had to get a nice cold coconut to beat the heat. After the park, we found another small pottery where my girlfriend made another quick piece, and also got to paint both of the ones she's made so far. We then headed to An Bang Beach to a beachside restaurant for lunch. I ordered some local khao lo noodles, while my girlfriend kept it simple with some veggies and rice. Afterwards, we went back to Hoi An ancient town to walk around a bit more, and we eventually decided to take a little boat ride on the river, which basically every tourist does, and it was nice, I have to admit, though we didn't buy the paper lantern to put on the water. It was then time to pick up the bag my girlfriend had made the night before, and it turned out pretty decent. We then contacted our hotel for a lift on a shuttle back from town, which was a convenient way to end the night. Our 13th day in Vietnam was our last day in Hoi An, and to start off, we went pretty hard at hotel breakfast. I got myself both an Asian food course, as well as a little fry-up to fuel our first adventure riding bikes borrowed from the hotel back to An Bang Beach. The ride there was mostly uneventful, but there was a bit of burning off happening in some nearby fields, which added an interesting smoky touch. We parked our bikes at the same hotel-affiliated restaurant and reserved a couple of seats before heading in for a dip. The water was awesome, and combined with the warm weather, made for a really relaxing swim. It wasn't the cleanest beach in the world, but it's easy enough to swim away from any muck that might be floating around. It was also the perfect opportunity to grab another cold coconut and really live it up on the beach. After our swim, we rode back to the hotel, and I almost stacked it on this bridge because I hate riding near traffic, but it was all good in the end. We then freshened up and checked out of our hotel, but we had a little time before our transport to Da Nang airport, so we just paid for one last meal at the hotel restaurant. I got the same burger I had when we arrived, which was still great, and my girlfriend got some noodles. We then took a car to Da Nang airport and checked in for our flight. In the terminal, we got another coconut, and I got a coffee and a pastry. After an uneventful 2-hour flight, we landed back in Saigon and checked into our hotel and enjoyed our welcome refreshments. It was then time for dinner, and we took a quick walk to the aptly named Pho Vietnam, where their specialty is this really tasty but crazy boiling hot metal pot pho. We really enjoyed this meal and all the fixings and toppings they provided, but I definitely burnt my tongue a couple of times. After dinner, it was back to the hotel for a good night's rest. Day 14 in Vietnam, and it's our first full day in Saigon. No hotel breakfast here, so our first order of business was a banh mi to start the day. It was a bit of a walk among the chaotic Saigon traffic, but that's all part of the fun. We went to the famous Banh Mi Hun Hoa and really liked it. You get a massive roll filled with meat, butter and pate, and a whole bunch of veggies to put in as you like. We bought one to share because our next stop was this place, Hao Cafe, to hang out and cool off. Not sure if I said its name right, but this place is really nice and modern inside. We got a couple of sweet drinks and a chocolate cake and had a great time just enjoying the ambience. Afterwards, we checked out this stationery store in the same building that, more importantly, had a couple of cute cats roaming around. We then slowly made our way back to the hotel, including a stop at this interesting underground shopping center, which had a cool metal slide that was impossible to ride smoothly. When leaving the mall, we got caught in the rain, so we decided to stop at this cafe called Little Hanoi for another quick refreshing drink. Once we got back to the hotel, we went up to grab some of the free afternoon tea they had on offer, which had some really great options, including waffles, which I was chuffed about. After our snack, we went out again for a little walk and did a bit of sightseeing around a few landmarks and a bit of shopping before heading back to the hotel to get picked up for our back of the scooter food tour. The tour deserves its own video, but in short, this was an amazing experience with 2 local guides that confidently and reassuringly drove us around so many parts of Saigon and took us to heaps of places to eat. We were so stuffed by the end of the night, and it was both of our first times riding on the back of a scooter, but we felt totally safe the whole time. It's our second last day in Vietnam, and for breakfast, we were craving some bun rieu or noodles with tomato and crab, so my girlfriend found a nice spot we could walk to from our hotel. It's always great to eat soupy meals like this early before the air fully heats up. We then visited the popular / viral Cafe Apartments building that you can probably guess contains heaps of different little cafes and restaurants. There's an elevator you can take from the ground floor, but they charge for it, so if you're okay with a small climb, you can just take the stairs. The key is to choose a place that has available seats on the balcony so you can get a nice view. Obviously you want nice food and drink too, but you're mostly here for the vibes really. It's pretty fun exploring all the other non-food locations too. We then went and did a bit of walking and shopping before taking a car to see this famous church that was unfortunately currently under restoration, and the famous Saigon Central Post Office, which was pretty cool inside. Afterwards, we visited the nearby Book Street and I sat down at a cafe and had a nice cold coconut. Then we took another car to meet a friend who was also visiting Vietnam and went to grab lunch at this place which seemed really popular with tourists, but at least they had great food. After another quick coffee break, we made our way to the War Remnants Museum, which was a really eye-opening and interesting experience and definitely a must-see when in Saigon. We then went to a nearby supermarket for some supplies and souvenirs before heading out on a quest for dinner. A couple of the places we bookmarked ended up being closed, but after getting a quick appetizer at a Vietnamese family mart for an onigiri, we ended up taking a car to a Vietnamese Jollibee, aka the Filipino fast food chain. The food and quality here was great, so we were pretty happy with the meal. To end the night, we did a bit of walking through the shopping center, then went to a traditional Vietnamese dessert restaurant for some refreshing sweets on this balmy night. On our 16th and last day in Vietnam, we started the morning off by using a voucher our hotel gave us for their cafe next to the lobby and getting a couple of drinks and a cake. We then set off on a mission to get some authentic Vietnamese chicken rice or com ga, so we took a car to a restaurant my girlfriend found that had pretty much just opened and enjoyed some amazing fried chicken and rice. The cool thing about the way this chicken is cooked is that it's literally showered with a stream of hot oil that somehow helps to keep it juicy. It was so good. We then walked to a nearby market to get a sugarcane juice, and we met up again with our friend from Australia. We didn't have much planned, so we took a car back to the area where we were staying and went to another cafe and did a bit of walking around before grabbing our last massage of the trip, which was a nice way to relax and prepare ourselves for the flight home. After the massage, we went to a pho place called Pho 2000 that's in the lobby of the hotel. This was probably the least impressive of all the pho places we went to. It was still decent though, just a little commercialized and safe. Its claim to fame is that Bill Clinton apparently ate there once. We then went to the Ho Chi Minh Museum of Fine Arts, which is a pretty cheap and extensive museum that had a few nicely air-conditioned rooms to cool off in. They don't let you use dedicated cameras inside though, so I had to film with my phone. It was then time to say goodbye to our friend, check out of the hotel, and head to the airport, which was all pretty uneventful. But one thing to note is that the food in the international departure terminal was priced in US dollars, so our dinner here was probably the most expensive meal of the whole trip, I think. Basically, everything is like 5 to 10 times more expensive than it was in the rest of the country. A pretty insane and jarring way to end the trip, but there you have it. Hope you enjoyed watching our journey day by day.